everyone, and welcome to this week's Sam Says with me, Sam from the FPL Family. We're going to be talking about all things Game Week 22 in terms of those scout notes, the all-important stats from the matches, and what that can mean for us in terms of our forward planning to Game Week 23, but also leading us into the double game week in 24. Okay, so this week I've picked out two fixtures that we're going to focus on in detail. Then we're going to have a little think about some of the key FPL assets that were in different games or that did things that might mean we have a problem and we need to look to move them on ahead of Game Week 23. Okay, so the first fixture that we're going to look at is Bournemouth 0, Watford 3. Now I've picked this one partly because of the change that we've seen in Watford. The new manager bounce is ridiculous under Pearson. Suddenly we see Watford doing things that we haven't seen for a very, very long time. Now that's twofold in my opinion, partly because of the new manager in Pearson and what he's doing to the club, but also, and very importantly, the return of Troy Deeney. That leadership has made a massive, massive difference to Watford, and it should be making a massive difference to us as FPL owners in terms of the FPL assets that we can bring in from Watford, who are cheap, nice enablers in many cases and can bolster our FPL attacks. Now, both Bournemouth and Watford started Game Week 22 in the relegation zone, but the difference in quality between these two teams was marked. The performance from Watford was exceptional. Yet again, Bournemouth were incredibly disappointing. Under Pearson, Watford have lost 1 out of the 6 matches that he's been in charge for, and that game was away at Anfield, probably the hardest, if not at least one of the hardest away fixtures that they're going to face all season. So not really surprising that they lost that one. So to have won or not lost those matches since then, really, really good form from them. Bournemouth, on the other hand, haven't won since Game Week 17. They are kind of poles apart from Watford in terms of the form that they're in right now. And for us as FPL managers, it's really difficult to pick any Bournemouth assets that could potentially work for us moving forward. Even the go-to and the most owned of the Bournemouth assets, Rico, was benched this week. Now that leaves us with a bit of a problem in terms of our Bournemouth defenders. He has so far been the cheap enabler at the back that we've all looked to from an FPL point of view now. A benching, as well as a very poor Bournemouth side who just aren't in form at the moment, leaves a lot of managers, myself included, looking for another way out or looking for alternatives. And there are a couple of kind of cheaper ones that we can look towards, the likes of Tanganga at Spurs, who got his debut, Premier League debut against Liverpool at the weekend. Also Williams at Manchester United, who seems to have kind of steadied the ship there and is becoming a regular. Both of those in at 4 million, both of them saving you some money over Rico. So there are options there if you're looking for a way to move away from Rico. But, you know, he is still in that bench fodder territory, so you can just bench him. Just frustrating when he's not playing at all because you do want something off your bench just in case. Also, Ramsdale missed out through injury this week. Howe said after the game that it was minor, it was picked up in training the day before. That it doesn't look like it's a major problem, but it's just one to keep an eye on if he is your FPL keeper. From Bournemouth, you know, the other player that we kind of have to talk about, we should talk about, is Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson had some few chances in that game, but not as many as you would expect from a player of Callum Wilson's quality or from the kind of player that we would expect to do more than he is. Now, granted, he's not getting a lot of service right now, and there are some real problems in terms of injuries and difficulties at Bournemouth right now. But Callum Wilson now hasn't returned since Game Week 7. After that blistering start to the season that he had, if you still own Callum Wilson, it is definitely time to move him on, particularly when there are other assets around him, the likes of Danny Ings at Southampton, who are performing week in, week out and doing, you know, brilliant things. Bournemouth just look like the absolute hard avoid right now in terms of FPL. It's interesting to note Howe's comments after the game where he said the first goal damaged us mentally and we didn't recover. That has a lot, you know, obviously it has a lot to say for Bournemouth, but it also says a lot about Watford. Watford played that game incredibly well, and it wasn't just one player. And that for me is what makes them a really interesting FPL team right now. We can look to so many different players from Watford, and there are so many different strategies of players that we can bring in. So if you have money to spend in the midfield, we can look at Ismail Assar, 6.2 million. Unlucky not to have had an assist before he actually did get the assist for the Decore goal. He's now returned in all 3 of the last 3 game weeks, and has 5 attacking returns in the last 5 game weeks. So he's on absolute fire. He is thriving under Pearson. And actually, in terms of this 5 and 5 that he now has, only Kevin De Bruyne and Mahrez among the midfielders can beat him for that. So he is looking like a really, really good option. Now, he is that little bit more expensive than his midfield counterpart in Doucouré. Now, Doucouré has attacking returns in his last 3, absolutely thriving in that new number 10 role that he has. So he's going to cost you 5.6 million. So you can save yourself some money by going for Doucouré over Sarr, and it kind of feels like a bit of a toss-up, and it probably depends upon how your strategy is working for Liverpool and that double game week as to how much money that you have to spend on a Watford midfielder. But both of them look really good options depending upon the price that you have to spend on them. The other key person, obviously, in that Watford team is the captain. It's Troy Deeney. Deeney scored again, meaning 3 goals in 3 games. And 4 goals in total under Pearson. So he has kind of bounced back, come back with a bang. His leadership is out there on display. It's very clear that he is, alongside Pearson, the driving force in that Watford team. Now, we didn't get any attacking returns from Deulofeu this week, but he was really, really unlucky, actually. And if you look at the stats for him, he was unfortunate, if you're a Deulofeu owner, that he didn't return anything. He was joint top for expected goals in that game. So yeah, he should have got more than he did, and I think as an FPL asset he still offers both great value for money, but also he offers a nice alternative to the likes of Deeney and Doucouré and Sarr, depending upon which part of the pitch and how much of your budget you have to spend on it. Alright, so let's have a look at some of the key stats from that game. Only 2 of Bournemouth's attempts came from inside the box in that game. Watford, on the other hand, were joint second for shots in the box in game week 22. Doucouré and Deulofeu together joint top for attempts on goal. Deeney was top for penalty area touches, with Doucouré just 1 behind him. And as I said before, although Deulofeu blanked, he was joint top for expected goals, so was unlucky. All of Watford's front 4 had at least 5 penalty area touches. And the Deeney link-up play was really, really important for that Watford play, and the way that Watford were playing, with him creating 4 chances in that game. The bottom line, I think, coming out of watching Watford play Bournemouth this weekend, and we said it before when we talked about Bournemouth's result against West Ham a couple of weeks back, is that Bournemouth are in a really poor run of form. But what we've seen from Watford, and we've seen it not just in this game, but in previous games under Pearson, is that Watford are on a massive rebuild and they are doing incredibly well. The form is there, the fixtures, they're a little bit mixed, but there's definitely scope for those attacking players in particular. If you want to go for the Watford defence, we've talked before about how Ben Foster is looking really good, right up there in terms of the top points keepers this season, top bonus points over keepers as well, so is an option. But the fixtures are a little bit mixed, and whilst I can see them scoring in game week 23 against Spurs, it's a home fixture for them, I don't necessarily see there being a clean sheet in that game for them. So I think at the moment the Watford assets, the 4 kind of key men up top, Sarr, Deulofeu, Doucouré and Deeney, all offer really nice value in the midfield and the striker positions, and so would potentially, over these next few game weeks, offer you a really nice differential pick. Okay, it would be very difficult to do Sam Says without picking up on the highest goal scoring game this week. Aston Villa 1, Manchester City 6. Now this game, really, in reality, the Manchester City players should have kept a clean sheet. Unlucky, potentially, to lose that with the last touch of the game, a penalty from El Ghazi. And I think if you are a Grealish owner, you can feel a little bit aggrieved that it wasn't Grealish who took that penalty. In terms of the game, Aguero back with bang from his injury, 3 goals and an assist, as well as all of the bonus points. This is his highest single game week score since August in 2018. It also meant that he became the record overseas goal scorer in the Premier League. So he was on absolute fire in that game. Now, part of that has to kind of go down to the fact that Aston Villa were without Heaton. They're without a number of their key players, so obviously that plays a part. But Manchester City were on great form. Pep talks about Aguero saying he was a legend already. That legendary status has become bigger tonight. yeah, if you were brave enough to risk, as Late Riser was, the Pep transfer roulette and brought in Aguero on the basis that, you know, he might get a start, it was absolutely the right thing to do. Obviously, on the flip of that, we saw Jesus starting alongside him, and that meant that it was Sterling that missed out. Now, for Sterling owners, I think it's becoming increasingly difficult to hold him right now. Sterling was an unused sub, so better than we were last time, because at least he wasn't just coming on for a 1 point cameo. But the only two matches that City have really kind of gone to town on their opposition were this one, where they won 6-1, and also the 8-0 victory over Watford. Both of those matches, Sterling was benched, and therefore you've missed out on a massive haul of points, which is really frustrating for Sterling owners. Mahrez, there were quite a number of transfers in for Mahrez this week, and you know, his form has been ridiculous. He has been made returns in the last 3 game weeks now. 2 goals, 1 assist, 2 bonus points in this game. So we had double-digit hauls from 3 City players, Aguero and Mahrez, as we've mentioned, and then Jesus, with also KDB picking up 2 assists in that game and then being hauled just after the 60-minute mark. So, you know, frustrating for KDB owners and KDB captainers, because it definitely felt like there was more FPL points for KDB in that game. However, you know, did go off before the clean sheet was taken away, so at least we had a little bit of extra there. I think we can, and I think KDB owners can consider themselves a little bit unlucky that he only scored 9 in that game week. I think it's becoming increasingly kind of challenging, though, when it comes to the Manchester City assets. We've now seen a couple of benches for Sterling. We see Mahrez coming in and out of the team in different waves and different phases. Aguero and Jesus, they won't always be able to play together, because at some point you would expect that Sterling's going to come back in. So there is always going to be roulette there. The latest Scout article on the Manchester City game, the latest Scout notes, talked about, you know, the best way to try and avoid this kind of Pep roulette. Now, KDB seems to be relatively safe. The game against Aston Villa this weekend was his 14th consecutive Premier League start. He's only been benched once so far this season, so he does seem, of all of the Manchester City assets, he seems to be the one that avoids the rotation. Mahrez has now made it 5 starts in a row. The article says, and I tend to agree with this slightly, with the likes of Mahrez, it's maybe slightly easier to accept if he gets benched and comes on, because his price is that much cheaper. When we're looking at the likes of Sterling, it's incredibly frustrating to own Sterling, see him sat on the bench and then see him come on from a 1 point cameo right at the end of the game. Although, you know, so I suppose from an FPL point of view, if you had somebody to come off your bench, it was nice that he didn't come on at all, at least. But it is frustrating, and it makes it difficult. I think, you know, there's been a lot of rhetoric since the Manchester City versus Aston Villa game about, you know, how we should all bring in Manchester City assets. And I can see that. You know, I think over the last few weeks, a lot of us have forgotten how good a side Manchester City can be when they turn on, because we've been so focused on the double game week in 24 and Liverpool. But we have to remember that, you know, Manchester City aren't going to play Aston Villa every week. They are going to have to play tougher opposition. They're going to have to play opposition who are in better form, and opposition who don't have as many injury problems as Aston Villa do right now. If we look at Aston Villa, they are either bottom or second from bottom for goals, shots in the box, big chances and attempts on goal conceded this season. So for everything that you would want them to be doing well in, and for everything that would make this a fair competition, Aston Villa are not doing very well at it. So I don't necessarily think that we should expect to see the level of returns that we did from our Manchester City players going into game week 23 and then 24. So a word of caution potentially on overfilling your team with Manchester City assets when we have the double game week coming up, and when there are other clubs like Manchester United who have a really, really lovely game week 24 fixture against Burnley. So, you know, yes, absolutely take a look at them. Yes, absolutely join the Pep roulette, but join it at your peril, and join it with the view that there are tougher games ahead for Manchester City, and if you roll the fixture ticker through the next 10 game weeks, Manchester City sit bottom. So the short-term fixtures are fine, they're quite nice. There's some difficult matches there, likes of Sheffield United in game week 24, which won't be easy. But after that, there are some tougher matches coming up. So I would just urge caution on filling your team with too many Manchester City assets. So on that bombshell that Manchester City won't put 6 past anyone every week, let's look at the key stats from that game. So Aguero was second for attempted shots across game week 22, and Jesus second for penalty area touches. So both of them in all the right places, doing all the right things to get the goals that they did. Without a recognised striker, if we look at Villa for a moment, El Ghazi played as a makeshift centre forward. Now actually he had 5 of Villa's 7 shots that they managed in that match, and was joint top for midfielders on attempts on goal. So there is some attacking potential there from El Ghazi. Let's see what happens with Aston Villa over the January transfer window, whether they manage to bring in a forward to replace Wesley as he's out for the rest of the season. If they don't, and if El Ghazi continues to play in that centre forward role, and if you are kind of looking for a cheap midfielder who's playing up top as a striker, then maybe he's one to look at. But Aston Villa, after this thrashing from Manchester City, they're not filling anybody with confidence in terms of FPL assets. And so be warned, yes, he's playing out of position as a forward, but how many attacking returns is he likely to bring in? KDB created 1 big chance in that game and is now on course to finish above Fraser's total of 28 big chances, which he created in the 18-19 season. So again, highlighting how important KDB is to that team and how important he should be to us as FPL owners. Okay, so those are the 2 matches that I've chosen to look at this week. Other important things of note: Bobby Firmino with his 7th away goal of the season so far against Spurs this weekend. He has yet to register a goal at Anfield, but ahead of Liverpool's double away game week in game week 24, Firmino is now putting himself on the radar alongside the likes of Salah and Mane to be picked in your FPL teams. Now Salah with the assist for the Firmino goal, so some attacking returns there for Salah owners and for Salah captainers. Mane was actually man-marked out of the game very well by a new defender to FPL and a new defender to the Premier League in Tanganga from Spurs. 4 million in the game, offers some good potential if, and it's a big if he continues to play for Spurs in the Premier League. Now he did play in the FA Cup replay against Middlesbrough on Tuesday evening. So there does seem to be an element of trust there from Mourinho in Tanganga, and he did play incredibly well. When Mane was removed by Klopp in the kind of transfers and substitutions on Saturday evening, Tanganga was sent to mark Salah. So there is a definite element of trust there. Mane, there wasn't really a lot of attacking potential there from him, but that was simply because of how well Tanganga managed him. So I think if you're a Mane owner, I wouldn't be too worried about that going into the double game week. He has been better away from home than Salah has so far this season, but Firmino outshines them both in terms of away form. So definitely one that we shouldn't be overlooking ahead of game week 24. He also offers a much cheaper way into the double Liverpool attack than it does to own both Salah and Mane. There were a number of issues obviously in game week 21 and over the last few weeks with the loss of Kane, and that meant a lot of people looking to make a key change to their FPL teams by bringing in a new premium asset up top. A lot of people looked at that Arsenal fixture this weekend against Crystal Palace and bought in Aubameyang. Aubameyang at first looked like that was going to be a good decision, registering a goal and then getting himself sent off. So 3-match ban for Aubameyang now following that means another transfer. Other premium asset is doing well at the moment in terms of Aguero, but other options lower down. Yet another goal for Danny Ings this weekend, whilst Southampton bounced back from that 9-0 loss against Leicester earlier on in the season to beat them 2-1. So he's up there and looking good. Rashford again with attacking returns this weekend and heading into, as I mentioned earlier, a really nice fixture against Burnley in game week 24. So don't overlook those single game weekers who actually have really nice fixtures. Over on the Scout website, you'll find an article from me about the single game weekers in Game Week 24, the ones with nice fixtures and the ones that we really should kind of think about, as well as putting all of our focus obviously on the Liverpool assets heading into Game Week 24. Another really interesting FPL result this weekend, Everton beating Brighton 1-0, another clean sheet for Everton. So that new manager balance is continuing. The Everton defence look like they are offering really nice value for money right now. Pickford a little bit more expensive in terms of the keeping options, but the likes of Holgate offering a really nice cheap differential defending option, particularly if you're looking for replacements for the likes of Rico, or you're looking to downgrade one of your defenders to free up money for that double game week. Now, word of caution on it, because Ancelotti did say that Holgate is due a rest in Game Week 23, so we might not necessarily see him then, but there is good potential for him moving forward across the rest of the season. The other Everton defenders, the likes of Sidibe, who's playing as a midfielder, and also Digne, who got the assist this weekend, look like really nice FPL options again. We've kind of gone off the idea of the Everton defenders under Silva when they just weren't playing very well, but under Ancelotti, they seem to have tightened up. The attacking defenders are doing what we would want them to do. The likes of Digne suddenly looking like he's worth our FPL pounds again. So yeah, keep an eye on the Everton defenders. They look like they might be really nice value for money and nice differential picks moving into Game Week 23 and beyond. Okay, that's it from me with this week's Sam Says. Thanks for watching. Before you go, hit that like button. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. I'll be back after Game Week 23 with another Sam Says, looking at the key scout notes for the week. If you want to know any more about the games that I've talked about or the other FPL games from last weekend, head over to our website, click on the Scout Notes, and you can read all through the information. At the bottom of each article, there's lots of nice members area stats. If you're not already a member, now's a great time to sign up. It tells you how to do that over on the website. Thanks, guys.